Well, while Israel's war against Hamas shows no sign of slowing, many people are already asking the question, what will happen when it's over? Most analysts agree it's far too early to say, but some scenarios appear more likely than others.
Destruction, death. Israel's pursuit of Hamas is leveling whole neighborhoods in Gaza, causing widespread human suffering and laying waste to infrastructure. This satellite imagery shows one area before and after Israel started its bombardment and later ground offensive. The shooting will eventually stop. Israel says that after the war, there'll have to be a new security regime for Gaza. Experts say three scenarios are most likely. The first option, tightened control. Israel's foreign minister has warned that Gaza's territory will decrease, which could mean wider so-called buffer zones. Before the war, areas in Gaza within a kilometer of the Israeli border were no-go areas. These could be expanded. Experts say that if the north of the enclave is totally destroyed, it could remain uninhabitable. Cut off like this, Gazans would depend entirely on international aid to survive. Option 2 would see the Palestinian Authority, which controls the West Bank, also take control of Gaza. This would unite Palestinians under a single government, which could also be part of any future negotiations over Palestinian sovereignty. The third option would see Arab states that have relations with Israel take control, along with the Palestinian Authority. The U.S. has laid down some red lines in response to options discussed by Israeli politicians and the international community.
No forcible displacement of Palestinians from Gaza. No use of Gaza as a platform for launching terrorism or other attacks against Israel. No diminution in the territory of Gaza, and a commitment to Palestinian-led governance for Gaza and for the West Bank.
A lot of no's. The other potential broker, the United Nations, has so far not presented suggestions for a solution, leaving the future of Gaza uncertain.
And for more on that topic, let's bring in Yossi Mekelberg. He's with the Royal Institute of International Affairs, also known as Chatham House in London. Now, first, please tell me about the day after. What will be the priorities in rebuilding Gaza?
Good afternoon. I think obviously we need to look at what's left of Gaza after, the massive bombardment of Gaza, the destruction there. But no doubt when you have hundreds of thousands of people, probably 700,000 people displaced, many houses destroyed, hospitals now under threat, schools. So in the immediate aftermath, there will need for a massive humanitarian aid, just to ensure that people have shelter, people have food, sanitation, water, and the rest. This will be in the immediate aftermath. Then also to ensure that people enjoy security, and then gradually moving into the rebuilding of Gaza and ensuring that also there is governance. Who is governing Gaza? You need some sort of government, assuming that Hamas won't be able to govern and Israel won't withdraw until Hamas is there, or possibly govern the place. There needs to look for alternative, and then we have to look into the interim and the long term. In the interim, probably some international mechanisms that we look into rebuilding Gaza, reconstruct Gaza, but also build the governance then, and eventually election and uniting the Palestinian polity between the West Bank and Gaza under one roof.
Now, Netanyahu says that Israel, you mentioned security, and he said that Israel will control the overall security of Gaza after the war. Do you see Israel holding on to that power for long afterwards? Or who do you think should step in after the war?
Obviously, what Netanyahu said is very vague. What does it mean overall control? Does it mean presence within Gaza, presence from the outside? The idea of the blockade was having overall control from the outside and keeping it contained. This failed and collapsed within few hours on 7th of October with disastrous consequences. So if he means staying there, then as all occupation, they become entrenched within the territory among 2.3 million people that will see Israel as an occupier and hostile to it. So it's very difficult to see whether it's just an element of rhetoric there to ensure the Israeli population that he's doing something, or there is an actually a plan how to ensure security for Israel vis-a-vis Gaza. I think a real plan will involve international forces there, at least for the interim time, until we are moving into some diplomatic effort to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Now, what about the Palestinian Authority? It sounds plausible, doesn't it, that they be given a chance to govern Gaza?
Well, eventually. Obviously, the PA can't just enter into Gaza considering how they left or were forced to leave back in 2007, and on the back of Israeli tanks just enter and be implicated with the war in Gaza and what's, the destruction left as a result of it. So again, that's what the need for an interim time. The PA itself needs to go through reform. The issue of succession in the PA and the PLO and finding new leadership, as much as Israel needs new leadership for Gaza, building alternative political parties that will run in the next elections, building the institutions themselves. So this is the process that we should be outlined and start, immediately when there is a ceasefire, and seeing new leadership emerging, but also new leadership that can think beyond the conflict itself into a resolution, a peaceful resolution.
Now, is this time, as tragic as everything is right now, could it provide a chance for a possible resolution of the conflict?
I think whenever you have such deep crisis, there is also a great opportunity. Because the one thing that everyone realizes right now is the current arrangements don't work. They end even in worse conditions. And by now, probably on both sides, there are more than 12, probably 13,000 people dead. And we saw the destruction and the trauma that both societies are going through, and the shock with that. And of course, a lot of trust, if there was any trust between them, it's even been damaged further. However, if a new leadership that actually learned the right lesson, that maintaining the conflict, talking in this elusive status quo doesn't work, and needs to go back to the root causes of the conflict, self-determination for both, recognition of the rights of Jerusalem as the capital of both, deal with the refugees issue, allowing economic development, dealing with settlements in the West Bank, all those issues that make the Israel-Palestinian conflict, with the support of the international community. Personally, I think should be a strong regional element of that, but without the United States and the European Union relinquish their responsibility, because it affects their interests too.
Yossi Mekelberg there with the international affairs think tank Chatham House. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you for having me.